Hi, my name is Daniel Wilkenfeld. I'm a postdoc in psychology and philosophy at UC Berkeley. I mainly do philosophy, that's what my PhD was in. I actually grew up relatively religious. I'm Jewish. But one aspect of Judaism that's shared with a lot of other religions I've studied, but obviously not all, is that there is an emphasis on actually understanding things and questioning things rather than just blindly accepting what you're told. So that's what I did as I grew up. And at first, I didn't find this too challenging, that I was able to accommodate seeming differences between the Bible and science without too much trouble. For any particular instance, I would just say, oh, well, this is just metaphorical, this is just an allegory to make some other point, so evolution's no problem. But over the years, I started to notice a disconcerting trend, which was that whenever there was any possibility of religion making an empirical claim, I immediately, in my head, tried to come up with a way that religion wasn't committed to that claim. So if it seemed like the Bible doesn't support the existence of other intelligent life forms, and like dolphins, I immediately tried to downplay that as a real claim. And I noticed that as someone who now does some work in science, it's a very disconcerting pattern because it makes God, as they say about string theory, sometimes not even wrong. That I was immediately eliminating any possibility that it could say something false. And in fact, it was worse than not even wrong, because I wasn't just altering the theory when something proved wrong, but I was afraid that if it could ever come in contact with reality, that would be bad. So it is possible. I mean, I readily acknowledge the possibility that that God exists and just for whatever reason remains hidden, but that seems kind of weird to me, and it seems oddly defensive. It's not what I would have predicted. So lately I've started to think that belief in God really should be treated as on a par with other sorts of beliefs for the most part. And you really have to examine the evidence for it. Now, as it happens, I don't know the evidence is that persuasive one way or the other. I actually find what's called the fine-tuning argument pretty persuasive, that if you just look at the universe, the more wonder we see, it turns out, the more incredibly unlikely it was to look that way. And every time we explain something by going through an earlier stage, it turns out to have just been more unlikely, which does suggest maybe someone was tinkering with it. But I do think those are legitimate questions to ask, and I do think you have to be open to the possibility. You don't have to, but I think, for me, I like to be open to the possibility that if the data come out wrong, I might have to revisit some of my beliefs. All right, thank you.